Друзья, и с вами вновь канал.
Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you at the National Solidarity channel. I would like to continue the conversation with the expert in biosafety and bioethics, Valentina Kiseleva. Madame Valentina, you had mentioned a very important subject, pulsed radiation. 5G, to be precise. Can it somehow impact humans?
Ну, я, во-первых, если позволите, поделюсь своим личным опытом.
First and foremost, if you'd allow me, I will share my personal experience in the area. Being a medical student myself, starting from the second year onwards at the physiology department, I was conducting a research because at that point of time my own father was a creator of a device that used to operate on low-frequency electromagnetic radiation in order to implement it for the air traffic controllers. I wasn't only focusing on its influence on people, but electromagnetic waves influence as well, and more to the point, the way our bodies radiate, which, as it was discovered, pretty unique for every organism and every organ, and also it can be measured. I have based my work on a few, platforms. Main platform was neurosurgery department at the Military Medical Academy. Another neurosurgery department was at the First Medical University in Moscow, physiology department in pediatry, and also there was the very start of Bechtereva Institution that also collaborated with me and my team. There were a lot of different levels and layers of work. What have we as a team discovered? An organism is a little power station. Each cell contains mitochondria, and as a result of the electrons exchange, all body organs radiate a certain amount of energy. That is why open breathing is important for us, for our bodies to function normally. Thus, we are susceptible to electromagnetic radiation, and depending on frequencies and vibrations, those radiations either resonate with our own vibrations, which is more or less harmless,
И в зависимости от частоты колебаний эти излучения могут быть либо резонировать с нами и вызывать те или иные состояния, но, как правило, скажем, все-таки если в рамках наших...
But if I am to mention high frequencies,
безобидно для нас, но если мы говорим о более высоких частотах, и чем дальше мы уходим, да, а все-таки 5G это...
For example, 5G, which is high, really high frequencies,
мы говорим уже о
then I must mention doubtless organs and tissue damages. And I'm not even talking about the cell level, it's the subcells level, on the mitochondria level, on the levels of the respiratory chains inside those mitochondria, which are inside the cell. And as for people who laugh, I really like it when those who laugh are engineers, or those who's got no degrees in either biology or medicine. They know everything about their devices and they work closely with the radiation. But hey, you do it from the other end. And we, as doctors, work closely with human bodies. We can assess the impact, and I don't even have to know what your device looks like from the inside. I only need the radiation frequency to see and understand its impact on humans. On the biochemistry level, cell level, on the tissue level, on physiology level, because those are different levels of the bodily functions. And according to my research, I can see that 5G impacts everything, all levels, no exceptions, starting from biochemistry to organs.
Я правильно понимаю, что
Do I understand correctly that through the 5G quite a few problems can be created that can be perceived as COVID, as an illness. I mean, if there is a cell that is under attack, then any disease can be generated?
Ну, мы можем вызвать любые симптомы, во-первых.
Any symptoms can be generated, for starters.
Мы точно не можем исключать того,
The source of the radiation is important here.
излучение, да, идет ли это через непосредственно гаджеты,
Whether it's going through gadgets or aerials, how close, how far, whether it's pulsed or constant.
облучение, естественно, является гораздо
Pulsed is more dangerous,
с точки зрения вот своего воздействия, да, ну, это
and it's clear, according to physics,
мы здесь не открываем никакой
nothing new really.
И когда нам кто-то пытается сказать, особенно вот с медицинским образованием, да нет, ерунда.
And when someone with a medical degree says it's stupid, there is no harm,
Меня, например, вот как специалиста это очень настораживает.
I get really alarmed as an expert in the area,
Спрашивать советы.
and I would be really apprehensive asking for an advice from that person who denies the obvious.
Хорошо помнит.
Perhaps they do not remember university level biochemistry or histology,
Занимается профанацией.
or they're just too deep in their own distortion, and neither is good.
Коллеги, мне кажется, больше довелось.
But mostly my colleagues fortunately understand and know a lot because I'm working closely with either military doctors or just well-educated people. Mostly my colleagues work
Иностранными коллегами.
on a very fundamental level, and they do understand that electromagnetic radiation on those frequencies
Понимание как раз того, что
just cannot be safe and harmless.
такого уровня никак не могут быть безопасны. Да, что тут и говорить, я когда вот начался этот вопрос специально,
When all that started,
потому что я вижу, как стремительно
before everything was deleted from online,
и свободного доступа,
and I can say that all researches and publications vanish from open access every second,
этой теме, да, и в другие издания, и я их для себя сохранила. Во-первых, у нас есть
I opened PubMed to see the last 10 years' researches on the subject, and I saved the majority of those papers.
специальность, опять же, военной медицине, которая
For example, in Russia there is a branch in military medicine that is working on radioactive waves and on electromagnetic radiation.
неионизирующими излучениями, это как раз
It's an exceptionally, let's say, popular area of focus, and they have got everything to conduct all sorts of the required research steps.
ну, направления и технически они оснащены соответствующие, и на местах могут получить.
They are also familiar with all ways of treatment of the irradiated.
И есть и способы лечения, то есть это не какая-то новая.
It's nothing
Мы
new,
с вами не обсуждаем нечто
absolutely
новое,
nothing new.
известное вообще медицинской науке направление. И точно так же огромное количество исследований опубликовано
Also, there are a lot of research papers
в журналах, именно вот медицинских, специализированных,
that are published in international scientific magazines and in medical magazines, etc.
чего ж тут говорить.
Not only about 5G, but also about 4G, which is not as bad.
Есть информация о том, что в Китае сейчас полным ходом уже тестируется 6G.
There is new information that in China there is 6G being tested everywhere.
Материалы, которые публикуются, предлагаются нам по
And I cannot imagine what and how. When I'm looking into articles about transhumanism and turning a person into a hybrid, not really human but not a robot as well,
происходит именно потому,
perhaps they are aware that we, the people, being a biological subject, won't be able to sustain that electromagnetic load, and we would need to be technically corrected.
подкорректировать технически.
Понятно. Ну, вот из того, что мы сейчас обсуждаем, и, в общем-то, это очень...
It's interesting,
Просто наши зрители, наши сторонники, они
and our viewers
5G это то, что может запустить...
Our viewers say that 5G can start a real pandemic,
запускает пандемию
not the current one, the one led by the World Health Organization,
тут реально болеть.
but the actual one. And people start getting sick because of the 5G pulsed
По крайней
radiation.
мере, такое мнение существует, и оно обосновано.
It has a substantial foundation.
Колоссальное
If only because there are a lot of 5G towers near schools, kindergartens. It's horrible. And then they might say, hey, there is a new virus from the UK or France. But it's all quite simple. Pulsed radiation. And I'm not even mentioning the chemtrails, which are also of interest. What do we have in our food or water? From our point of view, there is something going on the topic of converting people into biorobots. Through new technologies, it would be a biomass. But 6G, this is the first time I heard it. It's something else. But they launched 20,000 satellites and hundreds of thousands of those towers, which clearly tells how serious they are about converting us. Many people say vaccination. Pfizer, Sputnik. But what do they do? But they say Pfizer is bad, but Sputnik is good. So people aren't even given a choice whether they want or need to get those vaccines. You are a biosafety expert. Would you please give us any information about the vaccines?
Ну, во-первых, я с вами совершенно согласна в том, что
Firstly, I absolutely agree. At the moment, there is some sort of a competition.
мы сейчас вообще живем в мире условностей.
I'm saying sort of because at the moment we are living in some sort of a world. Note that. We have nothing real. There is a sort of a pandemic, sort of a competition, sort of geopolitical fluctuations. But there is an actual medical terror. Unfortunately, that one is real. We can observe it clearly. But if I am to speak about that so-called competition, I would say it's a psychological thing. Because if all vaccines were released simultaneously, and people saw that, they would have been really apprehensive about those vaccines. However, at the moment, we are given a false choice. There is a term in psychology when we'd like to educate our children indirectly. We give them some kind of a choice. We don't want an argument, and we give them an impression of choosing something. Like, for example, what time are you going to bed? At 9 or 9:30? I'm not asking whether my kid goes to bed at all, because they can say, no, I don't want to. So he will tell me 9:30. So he will go to sleep, and he will do it on time, when I said so. But he would have an illusion of a choice. Unfortunately, our life is pretty much, I would say, well, automatic nowadays. We rush a lot. We run everywhere. It's like a state of achieving goals, like we go somewhere. We don't even have time to stop and recognize ourselves. And the reality
нам предлагает.
is that we only have time for that illusion of a choice. But we aren't really given a choice. What we are given is a mandatory vaccination.
И мы теперь можем выбирать. И вот некоторые рассуждают так.
However,
Наша вакцина точно не может
that so-called competition makes people think, oh, so our Sputnik cannot be bad, so I will have it for sure.
не будем. Я вот хочу вакцинироваться только Модерной.
And some people say they don't trust Sputnik, so they will go with Moderna. It's tested, it's stable, it's European, it's good,
Путешествуем, у них
etc., etc.
лучше только для них. Я вообще вот до меня доходят даже не совсем-то и слухи, а в общем-то информация из довольно достоверных источников о том, что
I heard some rumors, and not only rumors,
врачи
that in Central Clinical Hospital,
обсуждают,
doctors discuss that all politicians will be also vaccinated, but by a completely different vaccine,
простых смертных,
not like us, mere mortals.
как бы раздобыть и как бы
And those doctors are looking into finding those special vaccines for themselves.
так уж совсем выпадать.
It's outrageous. And let's get back to reality.
Вернемся все-таки к реальности, да? И задумаемся на минуточку.
So let's think.
Если вирус был обнаружен, не выделен, да, а обнаружен
So if the virus was detected, not isolated but detected a year ago,
в декабре 19-го, января 20-го,
it was in December or January, doesn't matter.
для нас роли не играют. И буквально в течение нескольких месяцев
And in a few months, the vaccines appear, kind of simultaneously.
с небольшим разрывом вот эти замечательные разные вакцины.
Wonderful vaccines.
Во-первых, давайте мы сделаем небольшую
So
историческое
let me
отступление,
remind
как
you
вообще
how the vaccines are produced.
создание вакцин. Как они вот,
Produced and developed.
Мы же не говорим вообще о вирусе, который вот люди идут по улице, замер по стабилями.
I'm not talking about plague, when thousands of people die on an hourly basis and we are desperate to try anything to stop it.
Мы продолжаем существовать.
We continue living and mortality rates are quite low.
0,0 скольки-то процентов, там до условно там 3. Про то, что я никогда так тяжело не болела.
But I will mention separately about people who say they had the worst flu
Как это
ever.
вообще вот формируется, да, вот в нашем сознании про тяжесть заболевания. Но у нас нет той ситуации, когда смерть от вакцины...
But there had never been a situation when the mortality rate from the disease and the vaccines were the same. And I'm talking about the delayed effects. No one knows what's going to happen in 1 year or 5 or even 10 years. We would need to check everything on the cell level. Perhaps it was done in a lab. Then on small animals, mice or rats. But no progeny was made. Why small animals are used? Their life cycle is short. We have to test thoroughly throughout several generations, and that particular step is off. Then big animals come. But that one never happened at all. And only then, stable and adult people who are paid for it are able to take the vaccine, and we get test data. And we only get that test data from the people who are healthy and how they react. Then we have to take ill people, sick people. Cancer, diabetes, and in average around 1,000 people in one group. Did it happen? Nope. We forgot about facts and only live in a world of fantasies and speculations. We created that world by ourselves. And what I particularly and utterly dislike, the doctors and experts quote each other, and they cite unchecked facts. That, for example, there are no contraindications, no exacerbations, no side effects. But medicine cannot operate like that. We have to be 100% sure. As a bioethics expert, I have a question. What's inside that mRNA vaccine? They say something about adenovirus and about a spike protein. A spike is a little horn, and Madame Popova likes talking about the spike protein, which is a conservative part of the virus, and it won't mutate. How does she know? I don't get it. We have decided for the virus whether it's gonna mutate or not. We have not isolated the virus. We haven't studied it, but we already know that this conservative part won't mutate, and we can get vaccinated, and we can be sure that all future mutations will be based on that conservative part. The part that was put inside the vaccine. Where did you get it, if the virus had not been isolated? You know, it's interesting, sorry for interrupting.
Говорят, что, оказывается, вакцина, которая будет нами произведена, она будет...
Now they say that the vaccine is only helpful for like 1 year, regardless of the mutation. But if it mutates, then what vaccine? What vaccine are we talking about? And I don't remember being vaccinated while being ill.
Это всегда было
That's a
прямым
contraindication,
противопоказанием.
being sick. Yeah, and now they say, okay, there is a pandemic, but where is the logic? You cannot vaccinate people during a pandemic. I'm no professional. But please explain me the logic. There is no logic. I can't find it myself. That's what I have been working on. I can't find the logic. Because I need to understand where all this is emanating from. And what's wrong with my colleagues who say that we're all gonna die? Not all of them, fortunately. Some of them had resigned last year because they refused to participate in that slapstick. It's obvious, if something isn't based on facts and has no science behind it, and based on assumptions, and is also covered by payments, the payments from IMF. So I'd like to address to those doctors who get payments for mechanical ventilation, for the diagnosis. Do you know where the money is coming from? There is no such thing as a free lunch. That money you get and plan to spend on your hospitals, and I would like to be positive and believe they want to purchase new equipment. Yeah. I really want to believe. Please take a thought where this money is coming from. There is no money in our country budget. Why does IMF pay? And how we all, as people, have to pay back?
Рассчитываться мы уже видим как.
I already see us paying back. When they started speaking about the mortality rate being too high, and in Russia it was even lower than usual, I started thinking about other diseases. What happened to them? For example, vascular diseases, ulcer, heart diseases, they all vanished. Mass media created a pandemic of fear. They made people lose their natural immunity and become susceptible to many illnesses. But all that was presented as COVID. And many now start saying that, okay, the autumn is over, and in spring we'll have the new order. The World Bank planned payments up to 2025. But what payments? So, was it planned? The pandemic that does not exist. And of course I have to mention masks. And you mentioned that cells have to breathe. But now they make women in labor wear masks. It's outrageous. I can't imagine it. No common sense whatsoever. But the worst thing is that doctors and a lot of people help that new system. So people prepare themselves to be sent into COVID camps.
На тот свет.
Вот это да, вот как раз мы вернулись к началу нашего разговора.
Yeah, and we are back to at the beginning of our conversation. But I would like to mention other things.
Вот вы сказали о том, что пандемия страха это не.
You said it's a fear pandemic.
Мы действительно сейчас погружены в это
And
состояние.
yes, we are emerged
Независимо даже от того,
into the pandemic stress, whether we recognize it or not. We are all surrounded by all those symbols like masks and social distancing, etc., etc., etc.
Даже если мы не смотрим телевизор,
Even when we don't read the news and don't watch TV,
которые напоминают
but still all those symbols around us remind every single person that we are surrounded by this new normality.
собой. И в окружении каждого из нас есть люди очень сильно напуганные, которые транслируют.
Of course, there is a huge impact on people, and some people are really frightened. And those frightened people, well, resonate, and no one kind of canceled the quantum physics, you know? And here I really would like to mention the works of Peter Gayayev, but it's another topic. But there is also a psychological impact. And if I turn the news on, it's a total NLP. All the trigger words. And if I am to mention the masks, we aren't only given enough air to breathe. We in fact purchase the right for the air. Now we have to purchase masks and get a permit to breathe. But what's worse, that there is a generation of really sick people that is being formed. And I'm not talking about adults, but about kids who are surrounded by those mask enthusiasts. A kid doesn't see facial expressions or faces. Their psyche is being formed differently. And I saw some videos from Europe when kids start crying or go hysterical when an adult takes off a mask in front of those kids. They are frightened of a face. Do we recognize the damage? What people would those kids turn into? How can we help? When people say that we are inevitably going into the new normality, I'd like to say that those who want to go there, let them go. Who wants to live in a technogenic world, let them create a small one. I completely disagree, and I don't appreciate it. I will live in a normal world, whatever it takes. And I'm sure a lot of people want to live in the real normal world, and they want to remain intact as species.
во всех смыслах.
and they want to remain humans in all senses of that word.
И поэтому мы должны, конечно же, думать о том, что мы
Therefore, we have to be ready that those kids suffered of all that,
сегодня подрастающие пострадали от этого. Речь не только о дыхании. Речь и
and I'm talking about psychology as well, not only about breathing.
это как следствие, несомненно, приведет
Also, I'm talking about deep processes in their minds, which we planted there.
Психика это
All that will lead to physiological damage. Everything is interconnected. What is psyche? It's hormones, it's biochemical processes, and all that leads to a great damage.
Да, ну, конечно, мы сегодня с вами очень
Yeah, we have touched a huge and a very depressive subject.
тоже в депрессию, так сказать, переведет. Но все-таки вы как специалист,
But you as an
тот
expert
человек,
who is
который,
deep in that
ну,
subject,
достаточно большое время уделяет этому, какой бы вы выход нашли
what
из
can we
этой ситуации?
advise people who are waking
Что
up?
мы можем
Unfortunately, not
посоветовать людям,
all of
которые
them.
сегодня действительно начали осознавать, потому что значительная часть просто не
Many
осознает.
people are still
Это
sleeping.
ведет, и то, что вы сейчас изложили, это показатель того,
What
что
you said
действительно
is that a
из нас
biomass
с вами
is being
делают
created.
биомассу, реально биомассу. Мы с вами уже не люди,
We aren't
мы
humans.
как бы не человеки, мы
We are
человеки.
something else.
Нет,
No, no. We are humans. Otherwise, we would not be here today. Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, we are being pushed into that state. Yeah, I know.
учение света, не учение тьма.
You know, I'm always for education, self-education.
Не переставали самообразовываться, да? Не переставали бы...
Preferably non-stop self-education.
Мы понимаем картину мира целиком.
When we understand the whole picture and in details as well,
Слушаем, да? Вот нам сказали так.
we also do our own research. We do not just listen.
Не принимайте ничего на веру, и нам не надо верить.
Do your own research, and we shouldn't be trusted as well. But do not do the research through the mass media. There are a lot of scientific articles, available research papers, and I, for example, purchase a lot of old reference books because I understand that tomorrow they might erase that information, and I will never find it. Make yourself familiar with fundamental aspects of biology, chemistry, and medicine. Read encyclopedias. Listen to lectures if you want to, but listen to both sides and force yourself to think critically. Analyze everything, but do not base everything on opinions, because there is a difference between an opinion and analysis. An opinion is usually not based on solid facts, but analysis is. Let's educate ourselves. We are being denied an ability and opportunity of critical thinking, so let's take it back. Let's base our research on fundamental knowledge.
За что мы должны держаться? Что у нас пытаются отобрать? У нас пытаются отобрать мыслить критически. Отобрать привычку мыслить критически.
We have to start thinking critically. Definitely so.
Давайте опираться на фундаментальные знания.
Because forewarned is forearmed.
И когда человек образован всесторонне,
And you don't have to be an expert in physiology,
надо знать физиологию. Но надо понимать
but you have to know the processes.
процессы и политические,
And when you know global and political processes
касающиеся нашего непосредственного организма, мы
and
уже
medical
не боимся.
processes, you aren't scared anymore.
Всегда
Fear always emanates from ignorance.
Совершенно верно.
Totally
Я
agree.
вот хочу все-таки попросить вас, поскольку
So,
много
since
вопросов
we
мы
have
еще не
not
осветили
covered
с
a lot
вами,
of
да?
questions,
А может быть, все-таки
maybe we can go live
сделать
where
прямой
people
эфир,
ask
где будут
questions
задавать нам
real
вопросы,
time,
а мы на них будем отвечать.
and you can
И
answer
пусть тогда
straight away,
люди смотрят, наши ответы,
and they
сопоставляют с
can
тем, что
compare
сейчас
those
СМИ
answers
центральных
to
излагают,
what
да,
mass media
и
is
будут
giving
делать
them.
выводы, потому что как можно, только в сравнении
And they
можно
can
определить,
draw their own
ну, естественно,
conclusions.
грамотно подходя к этому. Поэтому я вот предлагаю вам, вы
So, what do you think?
такой прямой эфир.
Несомненно, я
I'm all
всегда
for it.
за то, чтобы люди
All for
действительно
live questions, and perhaps
и мы вместе
I haven't covered something important,
может быть, мы с вами упускаем,
and people would be able to point it out.
поднимут какие-то аспекты, которые мы упустили сейчас, не смогли.
So I will give more details.
Друзья, действительно, то, что вы на сегодняшний день услышали, пожалуйста, анализируйте.
Dear friends,
Включайте
please
мозги.
analyze everything
Поймите,
you
что
heard
это
today.
ваше
And not
будущее,
only
ваше
today. This is
будущее,
your
будущее
future,
ваших детей,
your kids,
ваших,
your families.
семей. Так что ждем вас еще раз у нас в эфире.
So, see you
С
next
вами был
time.
канал Народная
It's
Солидарность.
National Solidarity Channel.